Prime Minister. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Did you apologize to Donald Trump about Ontario's anti-tariff act?
I did. I did apologize to the president. The president was offended by the act, or by the ad rather, and it's not something I would have done, which is to put in place that advertisement, and so I apologize to him. I'm the one who is responsible in my role as Prime Minister for the relationship with the President of the United States, and the federal government is responsible for the foreign relationship with the U.S. government. So things happen. We take the good with the bad, and I apologize to him.
A major transformation is unfolding, and it's not coming from Washington. It's coming from Ottawa. Prime Minister Mark Carney has just wrapped up his Asia tour, and many are calling it a defining chapter for Canada on the global stage. From Kuala Lumpur to Tokyo, world leaders didn't just see another visiting head of government. They saw a statesman whose words resonated far beyond Canada's borders. For decades, Canadian diplomacy was viewed as polite, predictable, and deferential. But this week, that perception shifted. Carney turned a routine diplomatic visit into a bold declaration of confidence, proving that Canada's leadership isn't measured by proximity to power, but by its ability to stand firmly and independently. And just as praise poured in for his composure abroad, Carney once again showed calm mastery at home when he addressed the controversies surrounding Ontario's anti-tariff advertisement. He didn't inflame tensions or play partisan games. He chose diplomacy, reminding everyone that Canada's strength now lies not in its volume, but in its vision. Let's begin with the Prime Minister's trip to Asia, where he attended ASEAN and APEC meetings while vowing to reshape Canada's economy through engagement with major regional blocs. What exactly did the Prime Minister accomplish, Tom? Well, I think you're right to link those events together. These summits are part of an ongoing pattern of annual meetings, and Canada's participation there has been owned through decades of steady engagement. We have trade agreements with several Asia-Pacific countries and are viewed as dependable partners by most. At the same time, Carney is quietly signaling to the Americans that Canada has alternatives. After years of aligning ourselves too closely with U.S. policy, we're realizing that putting all our eggs in one basket was a mistake. When a figure like Trump decides to upend that basket, you're left exposed, and that's exactly where we found ourselves. Carney's deep global relationships, his expertise, and the respect he commands now work decisively in Canada's favor. For years, Canada was seen as a supporting player on the world stage, steady, responsible, but rarely leading the conversation. That changed this week. At the ASEAN summit and other Asian stops, Carney made it clear that Canada will no longer watch history unfold from the sidelines. It intends to shape it. He spoke of digital innovation, clean energy, and new trade corridors linking Canadian industries directly with Asia's fast-growing markets. The reaction was unmistakable. Leaders listened, not out of politeness, but out of genuine respect. That's what's different now. Thanks to Carney's leadership, Canada's voice commands global attention. For decades, our foreign policy revolved around Washington's orbit. Every trade initiative, every diplomatic move, was filtered through American interests. But Carney is redrawing that map. His message to the world, and particularly to the U.S., is that Canada no longer needs permission to lead. By meeting with Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, and China, he underscored Canada's ability to forge direct relationships with global powers without passing through Washington first. As one analyst put it, this is a Canada that has learned from the Trump years and refuses to be blindsided again. The lesson is simple. When you depend entirely on one partner and that partner turns unpredictable, you're left empty-handed. Carney's tour made it clear. That era is over. He's also sending a subtle warning to the Americans. Canada is ready to deepen ties with China. One early move could be lifting the 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, a policy we adopted last year largely to please Washington, which was trying to edge China out of the EV market. That gesture gained us nothing, only more tariffs and tension from Trump's administration. So now Canada is effectively saying, if that's the game you want to play, we have other options. Carney's emergence as a respected global figure is no coincidence. It's the result of steady, principled diplomacy, the kind that builds alliances quietly but decisively. Throughout his Asian engagements, he wasn't chasing headlines, he was cultivating partnerships. Leaders who once viewed Canada as a secondary player now see Carney as a bridge builder, a Western leader grounded in logic, integrity, and stability. Behind closed doors, he discussed expanding cooperation in energy, digital networks, and climate investment. Yet what stood out most was his demeanor, polite, principled, and firm when needed. That's what sets Carney apart from someone like Trump. Trump dominates conversations. Carney earns them. While Carney's tour drew global praise, a very different story broke at home, one that caught both Ottawa and Washington off guard. Reports confirmed that Mark Carney personally apologized to Donald Trump for the Ontario government's anti-tariff ad, an ad mocking U.S. policy and deepening trade tension. At first glance, it seemed puzzling, maybe even unnecessary. But to seasoned diplomats, it was a masterstroke. Carney said he disagreed with Premier Doug Ford's decision to air the ad. Trump responded by halting all trade talks with Canada, leaving future discussions uncertain. But Carney understood the bigger picture. The ad had already made its point. It exposed how Trump's tariffs hurt American consumers. Continuing to defend it would only inflame tensions. So Carney chose the higher road. He took responsibility, not because he was wrong, but because he was wise enough to know when to de-escalate. That gesture reshaped the entire narrative. Carney wasn't backing down. He was leading like the adult in the room. His apology wasn't weakness. It was proof of maturity and foresight, the kind of leadership Washington hasn't seen in years. By acknowledging the ad went too far, he reopened the door for renewed dialogue that could eventually produce a more balanced and lasting trade framework for both countries. Even critics conceded it was the right move. Former NDP leader Tom Mulcair remarked that Carney did the right thing by apologizing, explaining that the ad hurt Canada more than it helped. He didn't deny Trump's account. He explained it with candor. Despite some of the childish reactions from both sides, including the media frenzy around it, the reality is that communication channels remain open, and that, in itself, is progress. What Carney displayed this week, both in Asia and in his dealings with Trump, is what genuine leadership looks like. He reminded the world that diplomacy isn't about dominance, but direction. He opted for strategy over spectacle, calculation over chaos. While Trump measures power by noise, Carney measures it by the alliances he builds. Every handshake, every conversation on his Asian trip reflected a quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. That's why world leaders are praising him. Because in Carney, they see what modern diplomacy has been missing: clarity, integrity, and vision. This wasn't just an overseas visit. It was the moment Canada redefined its global identity. Carney is positioning the nation as a bridge between divided powers, a stable, principled voice in an age of ego and division. Is showing that Canada doesn't have to choose between Washington and Beijing. It can work with both while bowing to neither. That's the diplomacy of balance, something Trump never grasped. That's the distinction between politics and statesmanship. Mark Carney's Asia tour was more than a foreign mission. It was the culmination of Canada's quiet revolution, a moment where calm strength and moral clarity merged to redefine global respect. By apologizing for a provincial misstep while strengthening international alliances, Carney showed that Canada leads through conscience, not confrontation. In a world fueled by chaos, his composure has turned Canada into the partner every major power wants to work with. Because when others act out of ego, Canada acts out of principle. And yet, beneath the applause and diplomatic smiles, something deeper is shifting, something that could rewrite the global order in ways few are prepared for. Because if Mark Carney's quiet revolution continues on this path, Canada may no longer be seen as America's polite northern neighbor, but as a sovereign power rewriting the rules of alliance itself. Some in Washington are already uneasy, whispering that Carney's pivot toward Asia isn't just economic diversification, it's strategic defiance. Others fear that Canada's growing ties with Beijing and Tokyo could fracture the North American front, altering decades of political gravity. It's a stunning reversal, a nation once defined by modesty now daring to lead. But every transformation comes with a cost. If Carney's gamble succeeds, Canada could emerge as the world's new model for balanced diplomacy, independent, respected, and unshakably calm. But if it fails, the fallout could redefine not only Canada's place in the world, but the very foundation of Western unity itself. For now, the world watches, cautiously, curiously, perhaps even nervously, as Ottawa steps out from Washington's shadow. Because for the first time in a generation, the question is no longer what will America do next. It's what will Canada do next. And that, in itself, may be the most unsettling shift of all.